As always, thank you all for joining and listening and being a part of the Too Much community. The workbook, the Too Much workbook, Tools to Build a Life That You Love, is live. You can purchase at deniselovehewitt.com. You can get it at any of the links in my bio. This has been a labor of love built out of my journey of redesigning my life. So I created this 40-page workbook to help you figure out what your blueprint is for your life, not what society tells you to be, not what you thought you should be, really what your soul is here to do, and to figure out how to design a life that's going to bring you a lot of meaning in a really challenging professional landscape. So please check it out. I really appreciate all of you for tuning in, being a part of this journey, and I hope it brings you an immense amount of value.
It's not too much at all.
Welcome to Too Much. This week I have a magnificent guest, Kara Hoppe. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Karen actually met through a dear friend years ago, a long time ago. So let me tell you about Kara. Kara Hoppe, MFT, is a psychotherapist, death doula, teacher, author, existentialist, and mama. She spent over 15 years as a relational therapist, working with individuals, couples, and groups towards healing and growth, and guiding clients to become grounded, integrated people with greater access to their own instincts, wisdom, and creativity. Drawn to supporting the bookends of life, she helps new parents to partner better and also works with those living with the dying part of life. As a teacher and therapist, her offerings include the We Are Mortal course, a psychotherapy support group for folks living with late-stage cancer, and a monthly grief circle in Joshua Tree, California. Hoppe is the co-author of Baby Bomb, a relationship survival guide for new parents, a 2021 Indies finalist. Her writing has been featured in The Atlantic, Parents Magazine, Psychology Today, and Fatherly, among other publications. She lives with her husband and 2 children in Pioneer Town, California, and sees clients in private practice via telehealth. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And so good to be with you after all these years.
So good to be with you after all these years. And I think it's so cool that you deal with the spectrum of experience from birth to death. What drew you to having that expansive of a career?
Well, I was drawn to birth from having my son, who's 9. So 9 years ago, I became a mama. And a lot of it was hard on my marriage with Charlie, my
Yeah.
longtime true blue fella. And I was a couple therapist and I was struggling. And so I was like, okay. So I said to a friend of mine, Stan Tacken, who's my co-author, like, this is really difficult. Like, we should write a book about it. And so we did. And then it just became so natural to be helping people at that beginning stage, beginning as parents, and also helping their kids. Supporting parents supports children. And that was really juicy and nourishing to me. And then about 6 years ago, so I had been in practice for about 10 years, one of my favorite clients, cancer, came back, and it was terminal. It was everywhere. And we had worked together for a number of years before that, and then worked together the last 3 years of her life. And the work was profound. It was life-changing. It was so intimate, tender, absolutely, utterly heartbreaking. And yet also so vibrant. It's like, for all of us, like, our mortality, it's here. Like, yeah, someday I'm gonna die, but it's like here. It's like, but not
Yeah.
today. But when you have a terminal diagnosis, it's here now. You're confronted with it. And so, like, in psychotherapy, a lot of times people want to make changes, but they're afraid of those changes. But when you have a terminal diagnosis, there isn't a ticking clock. The desire for change usually outweighs the fear. And so
Yeah.
their work is more vibrant. So the work that we did together expanded to running a group, to working with tons of people, couples where one partner has a terminal diagnosis, to individuals. And it just grew from there. And I found myself, yeah, loving supporting people in both these bookends. They're very similar. I don't know about you, Denise, but like, When I walk into a house when a baby's just born, there is just like a timeless quality to it.
Mm.
And, you wash your hands, you're just aware, something numinous has recently happened. For me, I found the same thing walking into a home where somebody is in the dying part of life. There's a timeless quality to it. You wash your hands. It's such a, it to me, it has a similar feeling. And so
Mhm.
I was drawn to that, to both of those times. So both of those
I love
spiritual
that.
vulnerabilities.
Well, I think we're so scared of the end of life stuff as a culture. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of young friends affected by cancer, some in remission and some no longer with us. And as someone who's had multiple friends in their 30s with diagnoses, it does change your level of presence with mortality. And I have found myself drawn to this idea that why are we so afraid of something that's so natural, a human thing that we're all going to experience? But then also, what if we were able to be more in relationship with it now
Mhm.
so we can be better relational beings for the people that are going through stuff?
Yeah, I love that. Yes, yes. And be relational human beings for the people going through this and be more prepared for when it's our turn.
Yeah, and less fear-based. And I listened to a podcast years ago where they were basically like, you need to talk to your parents, like, before they get sick so that when as and when they get sick or as they pass, you have all the information, past, like, their estate, what their wishes are.
Right.
Look, I told this to my mom. It took her, like, a year and a half to
Mhm.
get me the information with me, like, prodding because I understand she doesn't wanna look at it. I don't blame you. But, like, we all know when that happens, it's gonna be me out of all the siblings. So I was like, I need to know what's going on because when you're in grief, you don't have the same, I guess, clarity of mind to function. So it's better to have the information in advance so you're not then amidst the grief fog trying to figure out how to be the caretaker of what's left behind.
How was it for you getting the information from your mom? How did you feel about that after all the year and a half of pestering when you got it?
I was happy I got it. I was thrilled that I got it. I haven't looked that deeply at it, to be honest. It was more about this is like our lawyer's information, like these are the various contacts. I don't necessarily have all of the documents necessarily, but I have the people that I will know who to speak to then give me all of the documents.
So it helps you feel maybe more prepared,
In control.
in control. Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like that I'm like, okay, I know what my steps are as and
Hmm.
when that happens. So then I don't have to feel like if I hadn't had this conversation, I'd be the one looking
Trying
for
to
these
track it
names.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where am I
exactly.
gonna
And
find
then,
that?
right. Yeah, which with grief, grief is spiritual, emotional, it's physical. Our brains don't function the same. So it's really an act of love that your mom gave it to you, and it's an act of love that you asked for it from her.
Well, that's what I think. I think for it's like I wanna make sure that I'm able to do this justice as and when the time comes. It is an act of love. We can have that conversation, not she doesn't wanna go there, we don't have to go there, but I in my head, I was like, it took her a long time because she wasn't quite ready to, you know, give me that information, you know?
Yeah. As a mom myself, I can appreciate how difficult that was.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
But
I think most of us know grief as an emotion
mm,
in culturally, but I just have started to think about grief as a skill.
mhm.
And I was curious your take on that.
I'm in agreement with you, Denise. I think it's a skill. I think it's a practice because grief is ongoing, right? The person's always dead.
Yeah.
So you're always going to miss them. My first grief initiation, my giant world collapse was when I was 21. We were 21. My best friend, childhood friend from 6th grade. When we were 21, she died in a plane crash. And it was just like I can feel the grief right now telling you, like again. And I bring this up because today is the 25th of March. On Sunday, It will be the 29th, which is 25 years since she died. 25 years. And you would think that not you, Denise, but like the universal you might think that I would be over it. And of course, my relationship has changed so much over the years. My grief has changed so much over the years, and it still takes me down.
Yeah.
So I think looking at grief beyond an emotion to a skill, to a practice, is just a more holistic way to view what is an experience that you have, everyone will have. Grief and loss happen to everybody. It is
Yeah.
natural to risk that,
Hmm.
you know?
We're living at a time where all of us are having, most of us have had personal grief, and then we're living in a time where there is an immense amount of collective grief.
Yeah.
And that is part of why I want to do this episode, was because I want to give people better tools to navigate what feels like every day a little more grief is sprinkled on us. And so, how do we start to cultivate grief as a skill?
Yeah, I think the first part about it, which is so obvious, but we can't skip over it, is identifying it as grief.
Mm,
I think it's misidentified a lot of times as like depression or dysthymia. I'm a therapist, so I'm familiar with the DSM. But I think learning yourself and how grief impacts you, whether it's like in the body, a lot of times people start to get sick or their bodies feel heavy before an anniversary. It's like their
yeah.
bodies know before they even know. So the beginning is like really sharpening your own awareness of like what is grief. And then when identifying its grief, there's so many different ways to handle it. Like, I love Andrea Gibson's wife right now, Megan. I'm spacing on her last
Megan
name.
Falley.
Megan Falley, and how she's grieving
It's
out in
beautiful.
the open, on stages, with other people. Like, grief for her is just not a hidden thing. And that's like really great example of grief. We think about grief as like, yeah, being alone and crying, but grief is a lot of different things. It could be, yeah, at a concert, remembering someone and tearing up. It could be doing a podcast and remembering your best friend and feeling like that missing again. So I guess like identifying the grief, sharing the grief, I think is really important. Finding a language of how to talk about it. So you're not alone with that. Grief is so much easier carried when it's carried communally. So like right now we're experiencing a collective grief. We all need to carry it collectively. So identifying in ourselves, sharing our own experience, asking people about theirs, having a dialogue. I'm gutted about what's happening to the world right now, or America right now, or our impact on the people of Iran, what's happening in the detention camps. I mean, there's so many places of heartbreak, and
Yeah.
we need to talk about it. A lot of my clients talk about in therapy about how much they wish their friends were able to talk about this with them.
Yeah.
So really just engaging in grief, I think, is part of the practice.
I agree with that, because even my friends, I'm sure you hear this as well, like my friends who have gotten sick, there is a distinction between who is able to face the sickness and who disappears from your life. It's a very common narrative that when people get sick, you find out who your real friends are. But for me, I don't believe it's like who your real friends are. I think it's who has the tools
Or the
to show up.
tolerance. Yeah, or the capacity or the tolerance or the familiarity,
And
you
so
know?
that's when we're like, let's cultivate grief as a skill, because those people that don't have the capacity at that moment when their friend is sick, I know they don't want to be that person. They don't want to be the person that doesn't show up for the person they love.
Right.
They just haven't honored that part of themselves that's facing the hard thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have to distance themselves, which just makes, I don't know, it just makes me sad saying it to you. I know that
It is sad.
yeah, it's real and it happens, but there's like such a loss for both people in that.
Yeah. Especially for the person that's sick, it's like a double loss, right? Because
Right.
I'm dealing with this illness, and then on top of it, I have to grieve these people who are a big part of my life that don't have the capacity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what I've learned engaging with it, which we talked about before we started recording, is that the more I look at grief, expand my personal container for it, the more it's expanded my container for joy. And so grief is messy. It's messy work. I wouldn't say it's like you get it got it right out the gate. I still get it wrong sometimes. But I think it's the willingness for me that I'm learning how much it's changing the other part of my life. And I did not know, like people say that, but I didn't believe them.
Mhm.
And now I'm like living proof. I'm like, oh wow, like staring at the whole of grief and looking at it and acknowledging it and enduring it has allowed me now this other feeling, which is euphoria.
Which is joy, which is euphoria. It's like similar bookends, you know, to be able to be with life's greatest pains, then we can be with life's greatest joys. To be attuned to life's greatest joys. There's also something magical that happens when you're grieving with other people. I see it. I started running a grief circle, a free community grief circle out here about, I don't know, 2 years ago. And I volunteer my time to do this, and I'm so fed by it
Yeah.
because I'm not exactly in the role of a therapist, so I can share my own grief in the group, like as a fellow griever, which is nice to be able to do. But I'm so fed by the shared humanity of
Yeah.
your brokenheartedness connects me to like a deep part of my own humanity that feels so good to be with. And I haven't quite found another way of doing it that makes it so accessible besides grief and death. I mean, I guess birth too,
Yeah.
in a different way, but I have so much more experience grieving in community these last couple of years, and I just think it's magic.
I think it's a model. I'm sure you're familiar with Francis Weller, but he's an amazing author for the audience. He wrote this book, great book, The Wild Edge of Sorrow, which he talks a lot about, grieving is meant to be
Yes.
communal. It is not meant to be a solo act. And we in America, as a very individualist culture, we have forgotten how to be in community and to hold each other's pain. And it does, in fact, lighten the load, make you feel more connected, more tethered to the world and then to each other.
Mm-hmm. It's just so great. That's a great feeling.
Yeah, but who wouldn't want that? But it involves moving through fear.
Yes, and it also involves building up that capacity to be with not only your discomfort but other people's discomfort, you know. And I mean, like, also the people that come to my grief circle, they're people experiencing loss, and so obviously loss of loved ones, loss of like world collapse, grief about the environment, career
Mhm.
death,
Mhm.
pets. Like, I don't distinguish between like what kind of grief. I just say all grief is welcome.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking this out loud with you in real time about how when you have not experienced loss, it isn't something you can intellectually know how it's going to feel. You have to experience it and then like see how it changes you inside and out,
Yeah.
you know? Like friends showing up too. If they don't have like a frame of reference for like I have also been taken to my knees, you know? Anyway.
Well, I often think in my dating life, a big thing for me is, have you been taken?
You want the people who have been taken to their knees.
Because
Yeah.
you know who you are. You know who you are when the chips are down.
Mhm.
And to be a real partner, you have to know that you are resilient, that you show up in the tough stuff. And so this is actually a big factor for me is to know grief is to know resilience. And relationships, you need a level of resiliency.
And vulnerability. Know grief is to know our most utterly most vulnerable. I love that, Denise. That's like,
It's not going great, but it is a
do you know
factor.
grief? If not, I don't know.
No, I dated this guy who life had just not hit him yet, like life hadn't hit him. And it was a short courtship. But the whole time it was going on, he was like, I feel like you want my heart to be broken. I said, no, I do not want your heart to be broken. It is inevitable. that your heart will be broken. I am just shocked that in your early 30s, that hasn't happened to you yet because I feel like my 20s were just a series of heartbreaks. So I was like, you've been very unscathed, which also in some ways I believed was a choice that he was keeping himself safe and not allowing himself to recklessly fall in love or be heartbroken or take a career risk that was going to maybe, let him down when he hadn't experienced any sort of personal death or loss in his life. And so I was like, I don't think I know who you are if you don't know who you are when that happens.
Yeah. I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Playing it too safe, not taking the risks for fear of
Yeah.
loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think that is part of what we're here to do.
Yeah. I don't think we have a choice in the matter. Is to love me, is to know that it will end either in your death or in theirs. And
Also
there's no
to love somebody is exactly that. To love somebody fully and wholly is to sign up for loss.
totally, that's better put. To love somebody wholly and fully is to sign up for loss. Absolutely.
And that can be death or it can be little heartbreaks along the way because you don't fall in love with somebody and be with somebody without at some point breaking each other's heart.
Yeah. Or even in long-term partnership too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. We all change and we hurt
exactly.
each unintentionally
Hmm.
too.
And grieving the previous version of you because as we grow.
Right. Or in like long-term couples, it's such a like to bring back to your skill, Denise, it's like not one person is going to check all the boxes. And so some boxes are going to have to be grieved. Does that make sense?
Does make sense.
Like that's something me working with couples we talk about a lot in that couple work. People can be married for 10, 15, 20, 25 years, love the absolute shit out of their partner and still grieve that their partner doesn't have better executive functioning, i.e. planned vacations,
Yeah.
or like something, some need, some box is inevitably never going to be checked with that human being, and that's being in perfectly perfect people.
Yeah.
And so developing a grief practice within a long-term partnership is also really important, you
I
know?
think that's such a good point. I
Mm.
have a lot of friends when they become, as you know, new parents, there's identity loss, there's just such a shift. And so this is so much of the work that you do, which is I have a few friends who are just struggling. Like their just communication patterns have switched and it's not what you expect new parenthood in your head. It's this easy, beautiful thing. And it's quite the opposite.
Well, you get served. Oh my God. New body, new identity, new constraints, new marriage or relationship. It's just like every way you look, it's like, oh my God, I'm so grateful, I'm so joyous, and like this is so fucking hard.
So hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And grief is a part of that. Like you said, grieving freedom, being able to just like, I don't know, pop out for brunch or like head out for a drink. Like that's not happening. Grieving, yeah, who you were, grieving body for birthing people too, because our bodies
Yeah.
change so much.
Yeah.
And grieving like the ease in the marriage or the relationship that used to be too, you know?
It's very interesting. What is like I guess we know they'd have to go to a proper therapist and do all the work, but for like a little tiny thing that could help people maybe bridge that shift in a more easeful way.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I love for people to talk about it, but it's really hard when you have a new baby to find time to talk. And there's also such a steep learning curve with the baby to learn how to care for a baby. And then at the same time, it's like, me? What's going on with me? So I like to make simple things with couples with new parents, just gazing into each other's eyes at the top of the day and
Mm,
connecting with one another and just saying just a couple of words about how they're doing and doing that at the end of the day, those transitions, just starting with ease to reconnect with each other because usually both individuals are going through so much but alone, almost in like parallel process, unless of course they're in like weekly couple therapy. But that is such a privilege. It's expensive.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
and also like finding time to do it. And so anyway, but in my book I have like a bunch of tips, but one of them is like, um yeah, gazing into each other's eyes, honoring that transitions are hard, the waking for adults, the waking and the sleeping, welcome each other home. Yeah, I don't like to go to the date night because that's such a canned thing, but I gotta tell you though, it is really important to still be lovers and still cultivate life outside the baby or
Yeah.
the toddler or the school age child or the teenager or whatever. Remember that you two existed before this and you'll exist after that.
Yeah.
And like, sharing new parts of yourself with each other, I think brings a new vibrancy to the partnership that happens usually away from the children.
Yeah, because once the children leave home, if that becomes the central force of the relationship and you haven't stayed connected through that, then when
Yeah.
the child leaves the house, it's incredibly hard to build back that connection and readjust to life. It's such a transition regardless for everybody.
Right. That's why I think statistically the biggest divorces happen, I think, with 3-year-olds and 19-year-olds. Those
Mhm.
two transitions, bringing the baby in or the child in, and then when the child leaves. It really rocks the greatest of marriages.
That tracks. That tracks for me because I remember when my mom became an empty nester, their relationship dynamic, I mean, for them, it was definitely for the better, but I remember it being so challenging for my mother who had become a stay-at-home mom, and that was her identity, to then have to navigate, "Who am I now without children at home?"
Yeah. Tender. Who
And
am I now?
yeah, like, who do I become, right?
Or who have I become? Yeah.
That one too, that one too. The cool thing about life
Yeah.
is that there's always a new initiation to
Yeah.
step into something. So when people are caught up on these timelines that make no sense, it's like there's every opportunity at different stages of your life to step into something new or
Mm.
to be the person that maybe you put on hold for 20 years. It's like it's never too late. It's just an opportunity to reassess, permission to be like, what do I want now? I get to choose, focus on me now. And what does that look like?
Yeah, I love a late bloomer.
Yeah. I'm telling myself that every day.
Really? I'm a late bloomer, so I'm like, yeah, I like, I love it. I had kids late, and Jude when I was 37, and Dion when I was 42, and
Mm.
it's like, that's just me needed.
I think that's right. I'm big on not judging the timeline of my life. I've gotten better. The hardest part for me has always been like professionally, not being where I want to be. I think that's been the hardest timeline for me to navigate. And more, I'm understanding the timeline of my life. I'm like, oh, I see. I get you, universe. I get it. I
Amazing.
get what you've been doing. I understand. But it's taken me up until very recently to accept it.
Yeah, I hear a lot of good work in therapy and like a cultivation of trust
Mm,
in
huge.
yourself and maybe the universe or your own path.
Yes. That's been a big daily practice. I talk to the universe most days.
It's nice to feel part of something bigger too, which I think happens when we see like a magic to our own timeline or our own unfolding too, in collaboration with the universe.
I just think once you see it, you can't unsee it. I don't know how to explain it to people, but when you're a spiritual person and you start to see the magic, you're just like, okay, I'm in. My trust in you is going to take some time, but I'm in. I see it. My thing is, it's taken me about 2 years to trust that like I am going to be okay as a full time creative. But it was rocky in the beginning, not good for my mental health. And then I was like, this is the invitation, is to master this scarcity mindset, to figure out how to be with it versus resist it.
I'm happy with you about this.
Well, it's only very recently, like literally 2 months ago, that I'm like, oh, I'm maybe getting to a place of more ease with it. But I say that because I think the misconception about work, this is a long haul. Like anything you're cultivating, trust, grief, resilience, it's a process that takes a lot of time and frankly discipline.
Yeah. And ups and downs. It's not linear
No.
too. I'm really thinking like of that whole two steps forward, one step back ness about anything, you know?
Yeah.
I noticed that when you said it's been like 2 months, like, are you waiting for it to be longer to feel like you have a bit more of a stabilization about teaching or like offering to listeners right now? Like, this is possible. You can cultivate like trust in a relationship with the universe.
Yeah. I think that I try not to be too prophetic about anything because we're all just fallible humans navigating and learning in real time
Fair
and then
enough. Yes.
sharing the learnings in real time and just
Right, right.
with all things, I'm like, if I'm learning something, then I believe it's a universal truth or learning for other people, right? Like I share because if I'm finding value in a learning I'm having, then I believe someone else will find value in that. But it's not because I know more than anybody else. So the reason I say 2 months is because it's very recent. It's very recent that, I'll have more instability in my life and I'm riding it more like a pro surfer today than I was. So it's interesting for me to even notice currently my
Yeah.
relationship to it. And that's why I say it's recent because I've noticed in the past couple months, I'm like, oh, like
I'm
you're
okay.
feeling pretty chill. You're feeling pretty
Yeah.
chill. What? Like, chill is not really where I live as a human. So, like, I've noticed it and been like, that is cool for me.
Yeah. 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 It is cool.
Yeah. My favorite thing about the work is that it works.
You know what, though, as you're talking, I'm thinking about the other bookend, death, and
Mhm.
about how when we are in the dying part of life, that there's something we're modeling to other people how to do it. And there's like such a purpose in that. You know what I mean when I
Yeah.
say that? Or did I take too deep of like a sharp left turn?
No. No, I understand. I understand what you're
Okay.
saying.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the excitement of like all like these initiation. There's always more. And like one of the things that I work with my group and clients about it is like in addition to the sorrow and the grief and the pity, like why me, all these like real parts, there does seem to be like a new purpose that emerges when they realize like I'm doing something first that like
Mhm.
my partner's going to do, my friends are going to have to
Yep.
do, my kids will have to do, or my grandchildren will have to do. And like what's going to stay with them is like how I do it.
Yeah.
How much grace can I muster? How much dignity can I receive or ask for? 'Cause there has to be so much dignity and reverence in this time. But I don't know. I think that that's really cool about it, that that part is like, that modeling happens.
Would you mention Andrea Gibson before? I'm a longtime fan of their poetry and the documentary, the
Mhm.
reason it was so powerful, I watched obviously I cried, it was beautiful, but I called my mom and I was like, "You have to watch this doc, it's just unbelievable. You gotta watch this." And then she called me back and she was like, "It just was really sad." And I was like, "Yes, it was really sad." But that also wasn't my first reaction. My first reaction was, here is a blueprint to show us how to be fully alive
Right.
in a time where in our heads we think you'll feel the least alive because you're struggling, you're in pain, you're looking at the end. And we have this beautiful blueprint showing us how to love more fiercely, how to be more present. And the relationship between Megan and Andrea, for me, most people will never touch a relationship like that in their entire lives. And they got 10 years of such a real, deep, dynamic, intimate relationship. And just witnessing that for me was worth it. I was like, may I be so lucky to fall in love
Yes.
like that.
Oh, yes. Yeah. May I be so lucky to
Yeah.
cultivate this much love.
beyond. But I
Mhm.
think that's the power of grief is if we're willing to look at it like that, we get a blueprint to be more alive right now.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a whole other skill to cultivate that, to befriend death to feel more alive.
Hmm.
The existential psychotherapist Irvin Yalom said, physical death destroys us. The idea of death saves us.
Hmm.
Because when it's temporary, it encourages different decisions than
Yeah.
if we think, I'm just going to be doing this forever. That's how a lot of people live their lives until they have a death or a wake up call or a health
Yeah.
diagnosis, you know?
Well, I heard Suleika Jayoud talk about, was an author, that when everyone talks about death, they say live each day like it's your last. She's like, actually, I would say live each day like it's your first. To like change the idea that we have to think about the last day as the time to live our life. The time to live is right now.
Yeah, it is really all we have.
Yeah.
Now, you and I being together on this podcast.
I'm having, once again, the time of my life. Every minute of my life, I'm having the time of my life. But no, I feel so honored to be sitting with you in your wisdom, and you're experiencing everything all the time.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but it is a full spectrum experience, or getting to work with these populations and kind of not just work with them from a distance, but to inhabit those fears about my own mortality and my own grief about
Mm,
leaving as I'm working with people. I don't know how to not do that, especially considering I'm mortal too.
yeah,
So meeting people where they're at by me bringing myself into it. Like, this is
yeah,
going to happen to me too, you know?
yeah.
And yeah, that's one of the reasons why I developed the course that I've been teaching for the last year or so, the We Are Mortal course, was because of the work that I've gotten to do with people living the dying part of life. I wanted to bring that experience to healthy people and to see kind of like if I could move it up the river, so to speak. If we can talk together, gather together, imagine our deaths and embody our lives, give voice to fears and talk about ways to support the fear. How do we carry grief? How do we carry uncertainty? It's a really juicy course. And every time I teach it, I'm like in there with it with my students too, because I'm constantly seeing what it means to really be alive by knowing that this is going to end.
The uncertainty piece is interesting to me.
Hmm. What about?
I find that uncertainty, the gray, as you probably intuited earlier from me saying I felt in control, the uncertainty piece, the gray space of uncertainty is really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard to just not know sometimes,
Yeah.
most of the time, all the time actually. But the the
I
because it's like
love it how you just like moved
well, because that's like
that,
yes. When have you ever known anything? When have you ever really been in control? Like the illusion of control.
right? The
But
illusion of certainty.
all the
Mhm.
time, the illusion of certainty. But I think uncertainty, like grief, is a space to cultivate and wrestle with.
Yes, I think so too. Yeah, to increase our capacity to tolerate the uncertainty, or tolerate the feelings probably that the uncertainty brings up. And what is the antidote to uncertainty? Trust that in the next moment, you're going to know how to handle it. We don't know what's going to happen to me or with you or anybody we know and love, but trusting that you're going to know what is needed or how to navigate it. You don't have to know right now how you're going to navigate it, or what will be needed, but trusting that you'll find your way, I think, is the antidote to uncertainty. What do you think?
I think that's right. What I've learned is that even the detours or the routes that felt
Like the two steps back.
yeah, Or just like, oh, did I make the right decision? Like, talk about regrets. If I had to go back, would I have done that differently? I think when I zoom out, I can see they served a purpose and it may not have been the one I wanted, but a lot of my life has been in service of building like an inner evolution. So I can look back and be like, that was not what I wanted, but I see that it made me a better person.
Mhm. Yeah. And also here in what you're saying is like cultivating like an ability to be with our imperfections of
Yeah.
not knowing why I did this or why I did that. I mean, like finding maybe a reason for it later in like hindsight, but I guess knowing in the time, it's okay not to know,
Yeah.
you know? It's also something working with dying people that we talk about regret a lot. It's also a completely unrealistic expectation that I will get to the end of my life and not have regrets.
Mm.
That's so it's like changing my relationship to regret, which it sounds like you're kind of playing with, seeing it like
Yeah.
for a greater purpose, seeing it like it took you this way or that way.
But what I've read, and you can speak to this from your experience, what I've read is that the most of our regrets tend to be relational. Like, was I loving? Did I love well? Was I loved well? Or they tend to be purpose related. Did I follow my dreams? What have you learned about this scope of regrets?
Yeah. I mean, both of those do come up, or what I've heard from my clients. Yeah, the relational regrets, because we fall into these like relational patterns with people. Like, I'm more of this with people, like, I'm more of a caretaker with people. And then people at the end of their life has got like, God, I wish I would have received more. I wish I would have been vulnerable. I wish I would have like opened that up more. So those kind of things, like those kind of relational regrets.
That's a beautiful one. I wish I would have received more.
Yeah. So they're not just like, I wish I would have spent more time with my kids. They seem to be like very specific to people with like their own relational patterns. And I think those patterns extend to like professional areas too. Am I comfortable taking risks, writing a book that nobody's going to like? Or like,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
doing something and falling on my face, like that comes up. But I don't know. A lot of people at the end of life do talk about not wanting to be a burden. That's a big one. Not wanting to be forgotten, which makes me sad because I think about we're here in America, like what's our cultural grieving practice for remembering people? Like we don't have one. And that does cause pain at the end, right, for a lot of people. And I imagine like maybe for myself too, how
Yeah.
will I be remembered? Yeah. But it's also interesting too. We talk about legacy also. That's like part of my course and it's part of working with people. What is legacy? What is it not? And then like another loss of control because our legacies don't start until we're dead. So who knows what
Right.
they don't belong to us.
Right.
But it was really interesting. One of my classes had a young mom in there who had lost her son, her 3-year-old son. And so yeah, I feel that right now. So she said like my son, he left an enormous legacy in those 3 years that I carry. And it was so fucking touching and um real. And I thought about my best friend and the legacy I carry. She was 21 when she died, but like I carry her legacy. I mean, it like led me into doing this work, you know,
Yeah.
knowing grief so intimately. So changing your idea of legacy, it doesn't necessarily mean a name on a billboard or a book or a doing of it this, a doing of it that. It's just like your
Yeah.
you-ness and people carrying your you-ness with them in their own way. Yeah, it's really touching.
I think the real legacy is the measure of the lives that you touch, right? And the depth
Yeah,
in which you touch people. That's the real legacy. We're caught up as a society in this
yeah,
very ridiculous version of legacy that frankly from what I understand, like most people are not thinking about how much money they made, right? It's not the dying regret. It's
No, never.
exactly, that's the point. So
I
it's
wish
like
I
if
would've worked more.
never. So it's like if we know, like I always say, like if we know these are the values, these are the things we think about when we pass, then we need to apply them right now, you
Center
know? And
them now, right? Like deepening relationships, taking relational risks, seeing how you show up in relationships, seeing how maybe you want to play with showing up differently,
mhm.
changing things up. Yeah.
And I've seen just in the course of my work with my family is like when I show up differently, they show up differently, right? Our family had a dynamic that I went to therapy first, so I outgrew and wanted to modify.
Yeah.
And it did modify. And that's what's so cool was that I did the brave thing. I wrote my sister a letter at some point taking accountability for my role in some fractures in our relationship. And it was a scary thing to do, you know? It felt vulnerable, it felt risky. And the reality is she never wrote me back. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter because our dynamic ended up evolving and changing. And that was the point. And so at the time, I obviously felt a little deflated. Okay, I wrote the thing and no
Yeah.
response.
Little dropped.
Cool.
Okay.
But then
But you
she
found
changed.
it, but yeah, but and you found a different meaning in it too, that it sounds like it was like you did it. You took that risk. You were that person. And then it changed the
But I
dynamic
also didn't
also.
realize I didn't need the response.
Yeah,
The
you didn't
response
know
was
until you did
something
it.
right, the response was something I thought I needed. And what I actually needed was for our relationship to evolve, which it did. And so that's the part where sometimes like we don't know what we need or what we're really asking for. And if I'd stayed in, I guess, like the more ego side of me that wanted the validation or the answer, we'd be back in probably in a similar place.
Right.
But I think it's always worth taking the emotional risk.
Yeah. I know we have to go, but I want to tell you one story before we say goodbye. Well, so losing my best friend when I was 21 was like just catastrophic, like world collapse. Okay. And that loss has stayed with me. And one time, my husband and I were early on in our relationship and we were watching Game of Thrones on a Sunday night. And I don't know what, but all of a sudden I looked at him and realized, oh, fuck, he's going to die or I'm going to die. Like it's going to happen again, like here. And I was completely like just taken aback by that grief and that realization. And then I thought about China, and I thought about how much I fucking loved her. I loved her like a sister,
Mm.
year after year after year, so close, so intimate. And that how much I loved her is the one thing that really comforted me in her death was that I felt like I left it on the field. Like I didn't have relational regrets like that with her. And like I thought I left it on the field and I that's like I not only do not regret that and made the loss so much more profound, but it's like the one comfort. It was a cushion for my grief. And so then I looked at Charlie, my husband, and I thought inside, I'm gonna fucking do that here. I'm gonna let it rip and it's gonna gut me. And that is what I'm signing up for. And that has been, like, I wouldn't say it's a destination, a practice with
Yeah.
him, with our children, with my friends, like, let my love just rip.
I love that so much. That is it. That is it. That is literally what we're fucking here to do.
Let it rip.
Yeah, because you might feel the loss so deeply, but you left it on the field. You gave them everything you possibly could. And it's so beautiful also because you're obviously a therapist and have deep tools. And so we've learned and cultivated an evolved way of loving as well, right? So it's like healthier loving. But I think that is the fucking point.
Me too.
And I want to leave us with one quote that I found that I really love. I heard this guy on a clip, John Onwuchekwa. I might be butchering his last name, but he said, "Let's not think of grief as a journey we finish, but grief as a language and our job is to become fluent.
Thank you for that.
I think it's the same with love.
Yeah, I think so too. Hmm.
Thank you for taking the time and sharing with us. And where can anyone find you if they want to find
Yeah.
you and join your potentially your grief circles if they're local?
Yeah, come to Joshua Tree to Grieve. We've got a great group. Or I come to Los Angeles a lot and teach my We Are Mortal course. Come there. I'm at karahoppe.com or on Instagram, Kara Hoppe.
And before we run, my last question is, amidst these really chaotic times, how can we summon some courage to be more brave to look at our grief or to love more fully?
No, the first thing that came to me was just we're not meant to do it alone. Tell people you need
Mm.
help. Be honest. I'm sad or I'm lost. That first like step. I don't know how to love. I want to love you more deeply, but I'm scared about getting hurt. Just name it.
So good. The naming does take away the power.
Yeah.
I really
Denise.
appreciate it.
Me too.
Thank you so much for listening. If you do like listening, it would mean the world to us if you could subscribe or review the podcast anywhere that you watch or listen to the podcast. It really helps with the algorithm to share this with the world. I want to give a special thank you to young Spielberg and Sarah Yarkin for their beautiful work on our opening jingle, Dana Boulos for her help with the beautiful art, and to all of you for tuning in and keeping this dream alive. If you want to hear certain topics or from certain guests, please feel free to email us. We really, really want to hear from you and see how we can best support you. See you next time.